The rain fell in sheets across Fifth Avenue, turning the sidewalk into a mirror that reflected the glittering lights of Manhattan's most exclusive shopping district. David Chen stood beneath the awning of Élysée Co, one of the city's most prestigious luxury retailers, water dripping from the brim of his worn baseball cap onto shoulders, covered by a threadbare jacket that had seen better days 2 decades ago. His weathered hands pressed against the pristine glass window as he gazed at a delicate platinum necklace displayed on midnight blue velvet. The piece was extraordinary, a cascade of diamonds arranged like falling stars, centered with a rare pink sapphire that caught the light with every subtle movement. For Rebecca, he whispered to himself, his daughter, the one he hadn't seen in 15 years, not since the bitter divorce that had cost him everything he'd built, or so the world had believed. The glass door suddenly swung open with such force that it nearly knocked him off balance. A man in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit emerged, his face twisted in disgust. "You," the man spat. Gregory Ashford, the store manager, stood with his arms crossed, his Rolex catching the light. "How many times do I have to tell you people? This isn't a shelter. You're polluting the air around my establishment. You're driving away my clientele." David turned slowly, his brown eyes meeting Gregory's without flinching. "I was just looking at—" "I don't care what you were looking at," Gregory interrupted, stepping closer. 2 security guards materialized behind him. "You can't afford to breathe the same air as the merchandise in the store. That necklace costs $250,000. That's probably more than you've seen in your entire life." A small crowd had begun to gather, well-dressed shoppers slowing their pace, phones emerging from designer bags. In the age of social media, humiliation had become entertainment. "Security, remove this person from my store's entrance." "Wait," a voice young and clear cut through the tension. A young woman in her mid-20s emerged from inside the store, her employee badge identifying her as Sarah Mitchell, sales associate. She had dark hair pulled back in a professional bun, warm hazel eyes, and a dusting of freckles across her nose. In her hands, she carried a disposable cup with steam rising from it. "Mr. Ashford," she said, her voice steady despite a slight tremor. "The gentleman hasn't done anything wrong. He's just standing under our awning because of the rain." Gregory's face flushed crimson. "Miss Mitchell, unless you want to join the unemployment line, I suggest you return to your counter immediately." Sarah hesitated, but she'd already come this far. She stepped forward and held out the cup to David. "It's tea, Earl Grey. You look cold." David took the cup, his fingers brushing hers briefly. Up close, she could see the kindness in her eyes. "Thank you," he said simply. "Sarah!" Gregory's voice could have shattered the store windows. "Inside, now. We'll discuss your future employment in my office." She met David's eyes one more time, offering an apologetic smile before turning back. Gregory turned his attention back to David, his voice low and venomous. "You have 30 seconds to remove yourself from this property or I'm calling the police. And trust me, I have enough friends in the NYPD that you'll spend the night in a cell." David took a slow sip of the tea. It was perfect. Not too hot, with just a hint of honey. He looked at Gregory with an expression that might have been amusement. "I'll go," he said quietly, "but I'll remember this. Every detail." "I'm sure you will," Gregory sneered. "Now get lost." David walked away into the rain, disappearing around the corner. Gregory watched him go with satisfaction, then turned to address the onlookers with a practiced smile. "So sorry for that unpleasantness. At Élysée Co, we maintain the highest standards for our clientele." Inside the store, Gregory pulled Sarah into his office, a sleek space with minimalist furniture and walls lined with photographs of himself posing with celebrities. "You have worked here for exactly 8 months, he said, leaning against his desk. "Which is why I'm going to give you one chance to explain what possessed you to undermine my authority and bring that vagrant a beverage from our break room." Sarah stood straight. "He's a human being, Mr. Ashford. He wasn't hurting anyone." "He was driving away business," Gregory countered. "Our customers spend hundreds of thousands of dollars here. They come for luxury, exclusivity, refinement. They don't come here to be reminded of society's problems. With respect, sir, I think our customers are more compassionate than you give them credit for. Gregory's eyes narrowed. Let me tell you what matters. Sales figures, quarterly growth, brand reputation. I became manager of the Fifth Avenue flagship at 38 by understanding that luxury is about exclusivity. The word itself means shutting out. I understand business, Mr. Ashford, but I also understand basic human decency. Then you're in the wrong industry. Gregory opened his laptop with a deliberate motion. I'm writing you up. One more incident like this and you're finished. Understand? Yes, sir. Good. Now get back on the floor. And Sarah, that tea comes out of your paycheck. Exactly 10 minutes after David Chen disappeared around the corner, a black Mercedes SC Class pulled up in front of Élysée Co. The rain had slowed to a drizzle. The driver emerged and opened the rear passenger door. David Chen stepped out. Gone was the threadbare jacket, the worn baseball cap, the appearance of destitution. In their place was a charcoal grey Tom Ford suit that fit perfectly, a crisp white shirt with platinum cufflinks, and Italian leather shoes that gleamed despite the wet pavement. His silver hair, which had been hidden under the cap, was now neatly combed back, revealing the distinguished features of a man who commanded boardrooms and built empires. He straightened his H. Marius tie and looked up at the building that housed Élysée Co. Not just the store, but the entire structure, 12 stories of prime Manhattan real estate. His building, as of 9:47 a.m. that morning. David had spent the last 3 months acquiring properties throughout Manhattan. The building at 5th Avenue and 57th Street had been the crown jewel, a property that came with sitting tenants, including the prestigious Élysée Co. Part of David's success as a real estate developer had always been his hands-on approach. He visited his properties, often in disguise, to see how they were really being run. He'd learned this from his father, who had built a small dry-cleaning empire by visiting his locations dressed as a customer to see which employees treated people with respect. Today's visit had been meant to be a simple observation. Instead, he'd learned everything he needed to know about the store's management. David walked through the front doors, his presence immediately drawing attention. Gregory Ashford looked up from the main counter, his eyes widening. Something about the man seemed familiar, but he couldn't quite place it. "Good evening, sir," Gregory said, smoothly transitioning into his most obsequious manner. "Welcome to Élysée Co. I'm Gregory Ashford, the store manager. How may we serve you?" David shook his hand briefly. "I'm interested in the necklace in the window, the platinum piece with the pink sapphire." "Ah, exquisite choice." Gregory's eyes lit up. "That's one of our most exclusive pieces. The pink sapphire is from Sri Lanka, and the diamonds are all flawless. The craftsmanship is extraordinary. Over 600 hours of work." "How much?" $250,000. "I'll take it," David said. "No need for extras." Gregory blinked. In his 15 years in luxury retail, most people hesitated at six-figure purchases. This man had the casual indifference of someone for whom $250,000 was pocket change. "Wonderful. Let me retrieve it from the display. Would you prefer to see it up close before we process payment?" "That won't be necessary. I'd like it gift-wrapped and sent to this address." David pulled out a platinum card holder and extracted a card with an address in Greenwich, Connecticut. Greenwich, old money territory. "Of course, sir. And how would you like to handle payment?" "Wire transfer. I'll provide the details momentarily. But first, I'd like to speak with one of your associates. Sarah Mitchell, I believe." Gregory's smile faltered. "Miss Mitchell, may I ask, is there a problem?" "In a manner of speaking," David said. "Could you ask her to join us?" Gregory's mind raced. He gestured to a nearby associate. "Please ask Miss Mitchell to join us." A moment later, Sarah approached, confused. When she saw David, her eyes widened in recognition, then confusion. The homeless man from the awning, but this man wore a suit that cost more than her annual salary. Miss Mitchell, Gregory said, this gentleman has requested to speak to you. David turned to Sarah. Hello again. I wanted to thank you properly for the tea. It was exactly what I needed. Sarah's mind reeled. You're welcome. Gregory looked between them. I'm sorry, do you two know each other? We met earlier this evening, outside, under your awning. Miss Mitchell here was the only person in your establishment who treated me like a human being. The color drained from Gregory's face. You see, Mr. Ashford, reaching into his jacket pocket and pulling out a business card, I'm David Chen, CEO of Chen Development Group, and as of this morning, I'm the owner of this building. He placed the card on the counter. Gregory stared at the card as if it were a live grenade. Chen Development Group, one of the largest real estate development firms in the northeastern United States. David Chen, the billionaire who disappeared from public view 15 years ago after his divorce, only to re-emerge wealthier than before. And Gregory had called him a vagrant, had threatened him with arrest. Mr. Chen, he stammered, his face cycling through shades of red and white. I had no idea, if I'd known who you were. That's precisely the point, David interrupted, his voice quiet but carrying absolute authority. If you'd known who I was, you would have treated me differently. But the measure of a person isn't how they treat those who can help them, it's how they treat those who can't. He turned to Sarah. Sarah, you treated a man you thought was homeless with kindness and dignity, even at the risk of your job. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Sarah felt tears pricking at her eyes. It was just the right thing to do. Maybe, but doing the right thing when it costs you something is the very definition of integrity. He turned back to Gregory. Mr. Ashford, I've been in the real estate business for 30 years. I've learned that a property is only as good as the people who occupy it. I've been reviewing your performance metrics. Your sales numbers are good, but your staff turnover is astronomical. 37 employees have left this location in 3 years. Gregory opened his mouth to respond, but David held up a hand. I also pulled customer complaint records, multiple reports of rudeness, discrimination, and what one customer called aggressively classist behavior. The corporate office has protected you because you hit your sales targets, but that ends today. Mr. Chen, please, Gregory said desperately. I've dedicated my career to this company, whatever mistakes I've made. It's not a mistake to treat someone poorly because you think they're beneath you. That's a character flaw. He pulled out his phone, typed briefly, and looked back at Gregory. I've just sent an email to the CEO of Élysée Co. As the owner of the building, I have certain stipulations regarding tenants. One of them is the right to request the removal of employees whose behavior create liability issues. I'm invoking that clause regarding your employment. Gregory's world collapsed. You can't. Élysée Co. will honor your contract in terms of severance, David said, but you will not be managing this location after today. He turned to Sarah. Miss Mitchell, how long have you been in retail? Sarah's voice was shaky. 5 years total, 8 months here. Do you enjoy it? Yes, I love helping people find the perfect piece. There's something magical about matching a person with something that makes them feel beautiful or confident. David smiled genuinely. That's exactly the right answer. How would you feel about managing this location? The world tilted for Sarah. I'm sorry, what? I can't officially make the decision. That's up to Élysée Co. corporate, but I'm going to recommend you very strongly. You understand what luxury really means, making people feel valued, not just the ones with money, but everyone. Mr. Chen, I'm not qualified.
You're more qualified than you think, David interrupted gently. I have properties throughout Manhattan. I need people I can trust to help me maintain the right atmosphere, to understand that real estate isn't just about buildings, it's about the communities we create inside them. He handed her a business card. This is my direct line. Think about it. In the meantime, I'm recommending you for assistant manager immediately, with the understanding that you'll take over the manager role within 6 months after training. Sarah took the card with trembling fingers. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep being exactly who you are, someone who sees people, not just customers. David turned back to Gregory. Please clear out your office by end of business today. Then he addressed the gathered employees. To everyone else, your jobs are safe. I'm going to be working with Élysée Co to improve working conditions and compensation. You'll hear more in the coming weeks. He picked up the card with the Greenwich address. I still want the necklace. Send it with a note. To Rebecca from Dad. I hope you'll give me the chance to explain everything. All my love. Can you handle that, Miss Mitchell? Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. Good. David straightened his tie. Luxury shouldn't be about exclusion. It should be about excellence. Remember that. And with that, David Chen walked out of Élysée Co, leaving behind a transformed world.
Sarah Mitchell stood in her new office, Gregory's old office, completely renovated with warmer colors and photographs she'd chosen, images of New York's diverse neighborhoods, and one candid photo of her shaking hands with David Chen on her first day as store manager. The past 6 months had been transformative. David had recommended her for a fast-tracked management program. She'd spent 8 weeks training at Élysée Co's Paris headquarters. When she'd returned, she'd implemented changes Gregory would have fought. A community outreach program where the store donated to homeless shelters, sensitivity training for all staff, a redesigned employee break room. Sales hadn't dropped. They'd increased by 18%. When employees felt respected, they worked harder. When customers felt welcomed, regardless of background, they came back. Sarah had stayed in touch with David, coffee once a month to talk about business, philosophy, and life. She'd learned that David's test hadn't been planned. He really had been looking at the necklace for his daughter. She'd learned that Rebecca had accepted the gift, and they were slowly rebuilding their relationship. And she'd learned that David's philosophy wasn't just words. He genuinely believed that character mattered more than credentials, that kindness was strength, and that true luxury was making everyone feel like they mattered. Her assistant knocked. Miss Mitchell, there's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he insists he needs to speak with you about a necklace for his wife. Sarah smiled. Send him in, and please bring him some tea while he waits. Earl Grey, with honey. Because that was what David Chen had taught her. True wealth wasn't measured in money or square footage or luxury goods. True wealth was measured in the character you showed when you thought no one important was watching. Because someone was always watching. And sometimes that someone could change your life. In a boardroom 40 floors above Fifth Avenue, David Chen looked out over the city. His phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Dinner this Sunday. I'm bringing Michael. I think it's time you met him. David smiled and typed back, I'd love that. Progress. That was all he could ask for. His assistant entered. Mr. Chen, the final reports from the Fifth Avenue property are in. Profits are up, and customer satisfaction scores have never been higher. Sarah Mitchell? She's exceeding every expectation. The board is already talking about promoting her to regional director. David nodded. Good, she's earned it. He turned back to the window, watching the city pulse with life below. Somewhere down there, people were making decisions about how to treat each other. Some would choose kindness, even when it cost them. Others would choose convenience or cruelty. But every choice mattered. Every interaction shaped the world. And sometimes, a cup of tea and a moment of human decency could change everything. Because true luxury wasn't about shutting people out. It was about opening doors and inviting them in.